The emergency alarms echoed through the crystal halls of the Galactic Council building. Admiral Kethavar's 6 arms moved quickly across the holographic displays, his blue skin turning darker with each report that came in. The news was always the same. Another system destroyed, another fleet scattered, another 1,000,000 lives lost. Status report, he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 battles. Commander Zix stepped forward, her insectoid features clicking with nervous energy. The Helios system has fallen, Admiral. The Third Fleet tried to make a stand at the asteroid belt, but she paused, searching for words. It was over in minutes. The Admiral's main eyes focused on the tactical display while his smaller ones watched the data streams. Red markers showed the path of destruction across 3 sectors. Each marker represented a star system that no longer existed. How many ships did we lose this time? He asked, though he already knew the answer would be painful. All of them, sir. 47 vessels. The Vorthak didn't just destroy them. It absorbed their energy somehow. Our sensors show it's actually grown larger. Admiral Kethavar had fought in the Zephyrian Wars. He had faced the crystal ships of the Void Hunters. He had stood against the living metal fleets of the Machine Collective. But nothing in his 300 years of military service had prepared him for this. The Vorthak was not just a weapon. It was a nightmare made real. The creature stood 30 meters tall, covered in armor that seemed to bend light around it. Its hide was black as deep space, but it pulsed with veins of red energy that flowed like molten metal. 6 massive legs carried its bulk through space as easily as a swimmer moves through water. Its head was wolf-like but larger than a cruiser, with teeth that could bite through battleship hulls. But the worst part was not its size or strength. The worst part was what it did to minds. Every being that looked at the Vorthak felt terror beyond reason. Brave soldiers who had faced death 1,000 times would drop their weapons and run. Seasoned pilots would abandon their ships. Entire crews would go mad screaming about voices in their heads that spoke of hunger and pain and endless darkness. Sir, another officer called out, we're receiving reports from the Outer Rim. The Vorthak has changed course. It's heading for the Centauri colonies. The Admiral's blood went cold. Centauri housed 12 billion souls across 15 planets. It was one of the most populated systems in Council space. How long until it arrives? He asked. At its current speed, 18 hours. The Admiral closed all 6 of his eyes for a moment. In 18 hours, 12 billion people would be dead. Unless they could find a way to stop this thing. Have we heard anything from the Krythak Empire? He asked. Any demands? Any way to call this thing off? Commander Zix's mandibles clicked sadly. Nothing, sir. Our intelligence suggests they lost control of the creature 3 weeks ago. It destroyed their home fleet when they tried to give it new orders. The Vorthak had been the Krythak Empire's ultimate weapon. They had spent decades creating it, combining genetic engineering with dark energy manipulation and psychic enhancement. The creature was supposed to be the perfect war beast, capable of destroying entire fleets while being completely obedient to its masters. But something had gone wrong. The first sign of trouble came when the Vorthak killed its handlers. Then it destroyed the research station where it was created. Within days it had consumed the entire Krythak home system. Growing stronger with each ship it destroyed, now it roamed free across the galaxy, driven by instincts no one understood and hunger that could never be satisfied. What about the new weapons? The Admiral asked. The quantum disruptors? The gravity bombs? All tested, sir. All failed. The creature's hide absorbs quantum energy. Gravity weapons actually seem to make it stronger. And conventional weapons? Commander Zix made a sound that was the equivalent of a bitter laugh. A plasma cannon that can cut through a moon barely scratches its skin. The Admiral studied the tactical display again. 3 sectors of space were now empty. Billions of people had died or fled. The greatest military minds in the galaxy had thrown everything they had at this creature, and it had not even slowed down. Sir, a new voice called out. The human delegation is requesting permission to observe our tactical discussions. Admiral Kethavar's primary eyes rolled. Humans were the newest member of the Galactic Council, having joined only 50 years ago after achieving faster-than-light travel. They were primitive compared to most species, still using chemical rockets when others had mastered quantum propulsion. Their weapons were crude, their technology basic, their understanding of galactic politics limited, but they were persistent. Every time there was a crisis, they asked to help. Every time their help was politely declined. Tell them we appreciate their concern, the Admiral said. But this is beyond their capabilities. Actually, sir, Commander Zix interrupted. They've been sending us research data. Analysis of the creature's movement patterns, behavioral studies, that sort of thing. Behavioral studies? The Admiral's smaller eyes blinked in confusion. It's a weapon, not an animal. That's what I thought too, sir. But some of their observations are interesting. The Admiral was about to dismiss the human research when another alarm sounded. The display showed a new red marker appearing on the edge of the Centauri system. The Vorthak has arrived early, someone reported. It's accelerating toward the inner planets. Panic filled the command center. Officers shouted orders while communications arrays lit up with evacuation requests from across the system. But everyone knew the truth. There was no time to evacuate 12 billion people. There was nowhere for them to go. The Admiral watched helplessly as the creature's energy signature grew brighter on the sensors. Soon another star system would go dark. Another piece of galactic civilization would be consumed by this unstoppable monster. Sir, Commander Zix said quietly, perhaps we should look at those human reports. The Admiral nodded grimly. They had tried everything else. Military might had failed. Advanced technology had failed. Maybe it was time to listen to the species that everyone thought was too primitive to matter. Bring me everything they've sent, he ordered, and get me a connection to their delegation. As the officers scrambled to fulfill his orders, Admiral Kethvar stared at the display showing the Vorthak's approach. The creature moved through space like a force of nature, leaving destruction in its wake. Its psychic emanations were so strong that even ships at the edge of the system were reporting crew problems. Somewhere in that system, 12 billion people were about to die. Unless a species that still struggled with basic space travel could somehow see something that the galaxy's greatest minds had missed. The Admiral's four primary hands clenched into fists. He had lived through the worst wars in galactic history. He had seen empires rise and fall, but never had he felt so helpless, so desperate. The humans better have something good, because in a few hours they would all find out if there was anything in the universe that could stop the Vorthak, or if this was simply how galactic civilization would end. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in her small office aboard the human research vessel Discovery, surrounded by holographic displays showing the Vorthak's movements across 3 star systems. While the galaxy's military leaders focused on bigger weapons and stronger shields, Sarah looked at something completely different. The creature's behavior patterns. Computer. Replay the Vorthak's attack on the Zephyr mining station, she said, adjusting her glasses as the hologram shifted to show the battle. She had watched this recording dozens of times. Everyone else saw a monster destroying everything in its path. But Sarah saw something else. She saw purpose, pattern, intelligence. The Vorthak didn't just attack randomly. It circled the station 3 times before engaging, like a predator studying its prey. It destroyed the defensive platforms in a specific order, taking out the strongest threats first. And when the station's crew tried to evacuate, the creature blocked their escape routes systematically. It's hunting, Sarah murmured to herself. Not just destroying, hunting. The door to her office chimed, and her 8-year-old daughter Emma peeked inside. Mom, are you coming to dinner? Sarah smiled at her daughter. Emma had been born on Earth but had spent most of her life traveling with her mother on research missions. The girl was used to spaceships and alien beings, treating them with the casual acceptance that only children could manage. In a few minutes, sweetie. I'm working on something important. Emma walked into the office and looked at the holographic display. The Vorthak was frozen in the middle of its attack, its massive jaws open as it bit through the hull of a starship. Most children would have been terrified. Emma just tilted her head thoughtfully. It looks lonely, she said. Sarah blinked. What, the big monster? It looks lonely. Like Max when we leave him at home. Max was their German shepherd back on Earth. Sarah was about to explain that a 30-meter-tall space monster couldn't possibly be lonely when she stopped. Emma often saw things that adults missed. Her young mind wasn't clouded by preconceptions or fear. Why do you think it looks lonely, Emma? The girl pointed at the creature's posture. See how its ears are back? And its tail is down? That's how Max looks when he's sad and wants us to come home. Sarah stared at the image. The Vorthak did have wolf-like features, and now that Emma mentioned it, its body language did seem familiar. Not aggressive exactly, but distressed? Computer. Analyze the Vorthak's posture and compare it to Earth canine behavioral patterns. The computer processed the request for several seconds. Significant similarities detected. The creature's stance, head position, and limb placement match patterns associated with anxiety, territorial displacement, and pack separation in earth wolves and domestic dogs. Sarah's heart started beating faster. Computer overlay the creature's movement patterns with known pack hunting behaviors. New data flowed across the holographic display. The Vorthak's attack suddenly made perfect sense. It wasn't just destroying things. It was trying to establish territory. The way it circled its targets was identical to how wolves surrounded prey. The way it marked certain areas with energy discharges was like a dog marking its territory. "Emma, you might be onto something," Sarah said, pulling her daughter into a hug. The door chimed again and Captain Rodriguez entered. He looked tired and worried. "Dr. Chen, we just received orders from the Galactic Council. They want to see your research data immediately." Sarah nodded. She had been sending her observations to the Council for weeks, but they had barely acknowledged them. Now with the Vorthak approaching Centauri, they were finally desperate enough to listen. "I'll transmit everything we have," she said. "But Captain, I think we need to do more than just share data. I think we need to approach this creature directly." Captain Rodriguez stared at her. "Approach it? Sarah, that thing has destroyed 3 star systems. Its psychic emanations drive people insane just by looking at it." "That's exactly why we need to try a different approach," Sarah said. "Everyone keeps trying to fight it with bigger weapons. But what if it doesn't want to fight? What if it's just lost and scared?" The captain shook his head. "It killed billions of people, Sarah. It's not some lost puppy." "No, it's not," Sarah agreed. "But it might be something similar. Captain, humans have been working with pack animals for thousands of years. We understand pack behavior, dominance hierarchies, territorial instincts. Maybe that's why we can see what others can't." On the display, the holographic Vorthak continued its frozen attack. But now Sarah could see past the destruction to the creature itself. Its eyes weren't filled with malice or evil. They were wild, confused, desperate. "Computer, show me the Vorthak's energy readings during combat," she said. New data appeared. During fights, the creature's energy output spiked dramatically. But in the quiet moments between battles, its readings dropped to almost normal levels. And there was something else. A pattern in its brainwave emissions that looked almost like... "It's calling," Sarah whispered. "Computer, analyze these neural patterns. Compare them to distress calls in pack animals." The results made her gasp. The Vorthak's brainwave patterns were nearly identical to the distress calls of separated wolves. The creature wasn't just destroying things for pleasure. It was screaming for its pack, for someone to answer, for someone to tell it what to do. "Mom," Emma said, still looking at the hologram. "Why don't they just tell it to stop?" Sarah looked at her daughter. Sometimes the most profound insights came from the simplest minds. "Because they don't know how to talk to it," Sarah said slowly. "But maybe we do." Captain Rodriguez was reading the data over her shoulder. His expression changed from skepticism to amazement. "These patterns, they really do look like animal behavior. But Sarah, even if you're right, how could we possibly communicate with something that size? Something that powerful?" Sarah thought about Max, their German shepherd. He was strong enough to seriously hurt someone if he wanted to. But he never did, because he understood that humans were in charge. Because he had been trained to recognize authority. "The same way we've been communicating with pack animals for thousands of years," she said, "through body language, vocal tone, and dominance displays. The question is, would it work on something that evolved in space?" Emma tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mom, can I see the monster again?" Sarah switched the display back to the live feed of the Vorthak. The creature was currently moving through an asteroid field near Centauri, its massive form dwarfing the space rocks around it. As they watched, it paused near a large asteroid and made a low sound that registered on their sensors. "Computer, analyze that vocalization," Sarah ordered. "Pattern matches Earth canine vocalizations associated with loneliness and seeking behavior," the computer reported. Emma nodded sagely. "See? It's calling for its family." Sarah felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in her mind. The Krythak Empire had created the ultimate weapon, but they had based it on a pack predator. They had given it intelligence and power, but they hadn't understood what they were creating. They had made a creature that needed a pack, needed leadership, needed purpose beyond destruction. And when its creators tried to control it through fear and pain, it had reacted the way any cornered animal would react. It had fought back, Captain, Sarah said, I need to make a request to the Council. We need to approach the Vorthak. Absolutely not, Captain Rodriguez said immediately. It's too dangerous. It's going to destroy Centauri in a few hours, Sarah pointed out. 12 billion people are going to die unless someone tries something different. She looked at the data one more time. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. The Vorthak wasn't evil. It wasn't unstoppable. It was just a very large, very powerful animal that had never learned how to live peacefully. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was teaching animals how to behave. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from dozens of species filled the great chamber, their voices creating a chaos of different languages and communication methods. At the center of it all, Admiral Kethvar stood before the massive holographic display, showing the Vorthak's approach to Centauri. The evacuation is proceeding as quickly as possible, he reported to the Council. But we can only save a fraction of the population, perhaps 2 billion people if we're lucky. Councillor Vextar, a tall being made of crystalline structures, spoke with a voice like breaking glass. What about the defense fleets? Surely we can delay the creature long enough to save more lives. We've tried that approach, the Admiral replied grimly. The 4th and 5th fleets engaged the Vorthak 6 hours ago. Both fleets were destroyed in 14 minutes. The creature is now 20% larger than it was this morning. Murmurs of despair filled the chamber. The representatives had run out of military options. Their greatest weapons were useless. Their most advanced technology was worthless. The galaxy's most powerful civilization was helpless against a single creature. Perhaps, said a small voice from the back of the chamber, we should try a different approach. Every head turned toward the human delegation. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the small podium reserved for humanity, looking tiny compared to the massive alien representatives around her. Beside her, Captain Rodriguez held a datapad containing her research. Councillor Vextar's crystalline face shifted in what might have been annoyance. Dr. Chen, we appreciate your species' concern, but this is hardly the time for amateur theories. With respect, Councillor, Sarah said, stepping forward, my theories might be our only hope. She activated her own holographic display, showing the behavioral analysis she had compiled. The chamber fell silent as data flowed across the screens, comparing the Vorthak's actions to Earth animal behavior. The creature isn't just a weapon, Sarah explained. It's a pack predator. Everything it does follows patterns we recognize from wolves, hunting dogs, and other Earth species that evolved to work in groups. Admiral Kethvar studied the data with growing interest. These movement patterns, they do seem familiar somehow. That's because they are, Sarah said. The Vorthak circles its prey before attacking. It marks territory with energy discharges. It calls out between battles using vocalizations that match distress signals from separated pack animals. This creature isn't destroying things because it's evil. It's destroying things because it's lost, confused, and looking for its pack. A ripple of discussion went through the chamber. Some representatives seemed intrigued by the data. Others looked skeptical. Councillor Threx, a being with multiple tentacles and no visible head, spoke in a series of rapid clicks. Even if your analysis is correct, Dr. Chen, how does this help us? The creature has already killed billions. It's approaching a system with 12 billion more inhabitants. Sarah took a deep breath. This was the part that sounded crazy even to her. I believe we can communicate with it. Not through technology or telepathy, but through the same methods humans have used to work with pack animals for thousands of years. The chamber erupted in voices. Some aliens laughed, others looked confused, and a few seemed angry at what they saw as a waste of time. Order, Admiral Kethvar called out. Let her finish. Sarah nodded gratefully. Humans have an instinctive understanding of pack dynamics because we evolved alongside pack animals. We know how to establish dominance without violence. We know how to calm aggressive animals through body language and vocal tone. If the Vorthak is truly a pack predator, these same techniques might work on it. You're suggesting we try to train a 30-meter space monster like a pet? Councillor Vexter asked, disbelief clear in its crystalline voice. I'm suggesting we try to communicate with it before 12 billion people die, Sarah replied firmly. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward, adding his support. Dr. Chen's research is solid. She's identified patterns that our best military analysts missed. And she's right about one thing. We're out of conventional options. Admiral Kethvar was studying the data more carefully now. These behavioral patterns, If they're accurate, then the creature's attacks aren't random. It's following hunting instincts. Exactly, Sarah said. And if it's following instincts, then it might respond to the right kind of leadership. The Krythak Empire tried to control it through force and fear. But humans learned long ago that the best way to work with pack animals is through trust and clear communication. The chamber fell silent as the representatives considered this radical proposal. Through the great windows, they could see the stars where the Vorthak was approaching Centauri. Time was running out. Even if we accept your theory, Counselor Threx clicked, how would you implement it? The creature's psychic emanations drive most beings insane. How could anyone get close enough to attempt communication? Sarah had thought about this problem for hours. The answer had come from an unexpected source. My daughter Emma has been observing the creature with me, she said. Her young mind seems naturally resistant to its psychic effects. Children's brains are more flexible, less rigid in their thinking patterns. She can look at the Vorthak without experiencing the fear and madness that affects adults. You want to bring a child into contact with the most dangerous creature in the galaxy? Counselor Vexistar's voice rose to a sharp whistle. I want to save 12 billion lives, Sarah said. And sometimes the most unexpected solutions come from the most unexpected sources. Admiral Kethvar was quiet for a long moment, weighing the options. Military force had failed completely. Evacuation could only save a fraction of Centauri's population. The conventional approaches had led to nothing but more death and destruction. What exactly are you proposing, Dr. Chen? He asked. Sarah activated another display showing her planned approach. We take a small fast ship and intercept the Vorthak before it reaches the inhabited planets. Instead of attacking or fleeing, we approach slowly and attempt to establish peaceful contact. If my theory is correct, the creature will recognize human authority signals and respond accordingly. And if your theory is wrong? Counselor Threx asked. Sarah met the alien's gaze steadily. Then we die and you try something else. But at least we'll have tried a new approach instead of repeating the same failed strategies. The representatives began discussing the proposal among themselves. Some species communicated through color changes, others through electromagnetic fields, and still others through chemical signals that filled the air with strange scents. Captain Rodriguez leaned close to Sarah. Are you sure about this? If we're wrong, we're not just risking our own lives. We could make the situation worse. How could it possibly be worse? Sarah asked. The creature is going to destroy Centauri unless something changes. At least this way. We're trying something new. Admiral Kethvar raised his voice to restore order. The council will vote on Dr. Chen's proposal. All in favor of allowing the human team to attempt communication with the Vorthak? Lights began appearing around the chamber as representatives cast their votes. Green for yes, red for no, blue for abstention. Sarah watched nervously as the tallies appeared on the display. The vote was close, but the greens outnumbered the reds. The motion passes, Admiral Kethvar announced. Dr. Chen, you are authorized to attempt contact with the creature, but you'll do so in a council ship with our fastest engines. If this goes wrong, we need to be able to get you out of there quickly. Sarah felt a mixture of relief and terror. She had gotten permission to try her theory, but now she had to actually do it. Soon she would be face to face with a creature that had destroyed 3 star systems. Thank you, Admiral, she said. We'll need a ship that can get close to the Vorthak without triggering its attack instincts. Something small and non-threatening. Done. When do you want to depart? Sarah looked at the tactical display showing the creature's position. Immediately. Every minute we wait brings it closer to the inhabited worlds. As the council session broke up, Sarah felt a hand on her shoulder. Captain Rodriguez was looking at her with concern. Sarah, are you really planning to bring Emma on this mission? She nodded. She's the only one who can look at the creature without being affected by its psychic emanations. And she understands animal behavior in ways that adults sometimes can't. She's 8 years old, and she might be the key to saving 12 billion lives, Sarah replied. Sometimes the most important jobs fall to the most unlikely people. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Sarah caught sight of the tactical display one more time. The Vorthak was still approaching Centauri, its energy signature growing brighter as it moved through space. Soon she would find out if her theory was correct. If humans really could communicate with a creature that the rest of the galaxy considered unstoppable. If not, Centauri would become the 4th star system to fall to the Vorthak's rampage. The Council's fastest scout ship, Messenger, cut through space toward the edge of the Centauri system. In the pilot's seat, Commander Yalati, a reptilian being with 4 arms and excellent reflexes, kept the ship on course while monitoring dozens of sensor readings. Distance to target 200,000 kilometers, she announced. I'm reading massive energy signatures ahead. Whatever that thing is, it's bigger than our sensors can properly measure. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the passenger section, going over her notes one final time. Beside her, Emma played with a small holographic toy, seemingly unconcerned about their dangerous mission. The 8-year-old had insisted on bringing her stuffed dog, a worn brown animal she called Buster. Are you nervous, Mom? Emma asked, looking up from her toy. Sarah smiled at her daughter. A little. But I think we're doing the right thing. The ship's other passengers were less calm. Dr. Rethkin, the council's lead xenobiologist, was a tall, blue-skinned being whose skin kept changing color with his emotions. Right now, he was a deep purple that indicated extreme anxiety. I still think this is insane, he muttered, approaching a creature that has destroyed entire fleets. What if it attacks immediately? Then we run, Sarah said simply. But I don't think it will. Everything in my research suggests the Vorthak doesn't attack unless it feels threatened or is establishing territory. Lieutenant Zara, the ship's security officer, checked her weapons for the 10th time. If your research is wrong, Dr. Chen, we'll have about 3 seconds to regret it. Commander Yalati's voice interrupted their conversation. Long-range sensors are picking up the target. Transferring visual to the main display. The ship's holographic display activated, showing a view of space ahead. At first there was nothing but stars and darkness. Then something moved between the stars, blotting out their light. The Vorthak was even more terrifying in person than in the recordings. Its massive body moved through space like a living shadow, 30 meters of muscle and armor that seemed to absorb light. Red energy pulsed through veins across its hide, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. My God, Dr. Rethkin whispered, his skin now pale white with shock. It's enormous. Emma pressed her face to the viewing port, studying the creature with the fearless curiosity of childhood. It really does look sad, she said, like when Max gets left outside in the rain. Sarah was watching the creature's movements carefully. The Vorthak was swimming through space in a pattern she recognized from her research. It was patrol behavior, the same kind of systematic searching that wolves did when looking for their pack. Commander, reduce speed and approach slowly, she instructed. Try to look non-threatening. How exactly does a spaceship look non-threatening? Commander Yalati asked, but she followed the instructions. As they drew closer, the Vorthak's psychic emanations began affecting the ship's crew. Dr. Rethkin started trembling, his skin cycling through colors rapidly. Lieutenant Zara gripped her weapon tighter, her eyes wide with primal fear. It's in my head, Dr. Rethkin gasped. I can feel it, hunger, rage, pain, so much pain. Commander, can you keep us on course? Sarah asked. Yalati's hands were shaking on the controls, but she nodded grimly. For now. But if we get much closer, I don't know if I can function. Emma seemed completely unaffected by the creature's mental presence. She continued watching it through the viewing port, her head tilted thoughtfully. It's not angry, she said. It's scared. Sarah checked the sensor readings. The Vorthak had noticed their ship but hadn't turned toward them yet. It was continuing its patrol pattern, occasionally making low sounds that registered on their audio equipment. Those vocalizations, Sarah murmured. Computer, compare them to the distress calls we analyzed earlier. 97% match, the computer reported. The creature appears to be calling for assistance or companionship. The ship shuddered as they passed through an energy field surrounding the Vorthak. Immediately, the lights began flickering and several systems started showing warning messages. Hull stress increasing, Commander Yalati reported through gritted teeth. Whatever this thing is putting out, it's interfering with our ship's systems. Sarah realized they were running out of time. If they waited much longer, the crew would be too affected by the creature's psychic emanations to function, and the ship might not survive the energy bombardment much longer. Take us closer, she said. We need to get its attention. Are you insane? Lieutenant Zara demanded. That thing will kill us. Only if we threaten it, Sarah replied. Emma, are you ready? The little girl nodded seriously. She understood that something important was happening, even if she didn't fully grasp the danger. As they approached to within 50,000 kilometers, the Vorthak finally noticed them. Its massive head turned toward their ship, and eyes the size of shuttle bays focused on them with predatory intelligence. The psychic pressure increased dramatically. Dr. Rethkin collapsed in his chair, unconscious. Lieutenant Zara was hyperventilating, her finger on the trigger of her weapon. Even Commander Yalati was struggling to maintain control. "It sees us," Yalati whispered. "It's looking right at us." Through the viewing port, they could see the creature's face clearly now. Its features were distinctly wolf-like but scaled up to impossible proportions. Its mouth could swallow their entire ship. Its teeth were longer than a person was tall. But what struck Sarah most were its eyes. They weren't the eyes of a mindless weapon or an evil monster. They were the eyes of an intelligent creature that was lost, confused, and desperately alone. The Vorthak opened its mouth and released a sound that shook their ship like a leaf. Emergency alarms started ringing as hull plating began to crack under the sonic assault. "We have to go," Lieutenant Zara screamed over the noise. "It's going to destroy us." But Emma stood up from her seat and walked calmly to the ship's communication system. She had watched her mother use it dozens of times during their research missions. "Emma, what are you doing?" Sarah called out. The little girl activated the external speakers and looked out at the massive creature through the viewing port. For a moment, girl and monster stared at each other across the void of space. The Vorthak tilted its head, the same gesture that Max made when he heard an interesting sound. Its massive eyes focused on Emma with sudden intensity. Emma took a deep breath and spoke into the communicator with the clear, confident voice that only children possess when addressing a misbehaving animal. "Sit." The word cut through space with an authority that had nothing to do with technology or power. It was the voice of a pack leader giving a command, the voice of someone who expected to be obeyed. The universe seemed to hold its breath. The Vorthak's massive head tilted further, confusion clear in its enormous eyes. For the first time since its rampage began, the creature had encountered something it recognized but didn't understand. The psychic emanations faltered. The energy discharges stopped. The terrible sound that had been shaking their ship faded to silence. And then, slowly, impossibly, the Vorthak lowered its haunches. Its massive legs bent and its body settled into a position that was unmistakably what Emma had commanded. The creature sat. Did that just work? Commander Yalati whispered in amazement. Sarah stared at her daughter, then at the creature, then back at her daughter. Her theory had been correct, but seeing it proven was still almost impossible to believe. Emma smiled and spoke into the communicator again, using the same tone she used when praising Max for good behavior. "Good boy." The Vorthak's tail, an appendage the size of a starship, began to move in what could only be described as wagging. The silence that followed Emma's command was unlike anything the galaxy had ever experienced. For the first time in months, the Vorthak was completely still. The creature that had destroyed 3 star systems sat in space like an enormous, obedient pet. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at her daughter in amazement. Emma stood at the communication panel, looking pleased with herself in the way children do when they successfully train a difficult animal. "Mom, it worked just like with Max," Emma said matter-of-factly. Commander Yalati was the first to recover from the shock. "Dr. Chen, what do we do now?" "It's just sitting there." Through the viewing port, the Vorthak remained in position, its massive eyes fixed on their ship. The psychic emanations that had driven crews insane were now barely noticeable, reduced to what felt like the gentle mental presence of a large dog. "We need to establish proper communication," Sarah said, her scientific mind racing with possibilities. "Emma showed it that we're in charge, but now we need to build trust." Dr. Rethkin had regained consciousness and was staring at the display in disbelief. "This is impossible. That creature destroyed the greatest fleets in the galaxy. It can't just be tamed." "It's not tamed," Sarah corrected. "It's finally found what it was looking for. A pack leader. Someone to tell it what to do." Emma walked back to the viewing port and waved at the Vorthak. The creature's head tilted slightly, watching her movement with obvious interest. "Can I talk to it again, Mom?" Emma asked. Sarah nodded, though her heart was pounding. They were dealing with forces beyond anything in human experience, but her daughter seemed to understand the creature better than anyone. Emma activated the communicator again. "Stay," she said in the same firm but gentle tone she used with Max. The Vorthak remained motionless, apparently content to wait for further instructions. "It's responding to basic commands," Sarah observed. recording everything for later analysis. But we need to test the limits of this connection. Commander, slowly increase our distance. Let's see if the creature follows us. As the messenger began to move away, the Vorthak's head tracked their movement, but it remained in position. Emma had told it to stay, so it stayed. Remarkable, Dr. Rethkin whispered. Its loyalty seems absolute. Sarah was analyzing the sensor data from the creature. Look at its energy readings. They've stabilized completely. The chaotic patterns we saw during its rampage are gone. It's calm. Lieutenant Zara, who had finally stopped hyperventilating, pointed at the tactical display. Dr. Chen, we're receiving communications from the Centauri Defense Forces. They want to know what's happening. Sarah took the communication. This is Dr. Chen aboard the messenger. We have successfully established contact with the Vorthak. The creature is no longer aggressive. The voice that responded was filled with disbelief. Dr. Chen, our sensors show the creature is still active. What do you mean by no longer aggressive? I mean it's sitting quietly and waiting for instructions, Sarah replied. We've managed to communicate with it using techniques similar to animal training. There was a long pause. Did you just say you trained the Vorthak like an animal? Emma giggled and took the communicator from her mother. Hi, I told the big monster to sit and it did. It's really nice once you talk to it properly. Another pause, even longer this time. Who is this? I'm Emma, I'm 8. The monster looks scary, but it's just lonely. It wants someone to be its friend. Sarah gently took the communicator back. This is Dr. Chen again. My daughter has a natural ability to communicate with the creature. We're going to run some tests to determine the extent of this connection. Over the next several hours, Emma worked with the Vorthak while Sarah documented everything. The creature responded to basic commands like stay, come, and stop with perfect obedience. When Emma told it to follow their ship, it swam through space alongside them like a massive pet. Most remarkably, the Vorthak seemed to understand when Emma was pleased or displeased with its behavior. When it accidentally got too close to an asteroid and cracked it with its psychic emanations, Emma scolded it gently. The creature immediately backed away and made soft apologetic sounds. It's learning, Sarah realized, not just following commands but actually learning appropriate behavior. Dr. Rethkin was taking detailed notes. The creature's neural patterns have completely changed. It's gone from chaotic aggression to something resembling contentment. It finally has what it was looking for, Sarah explained. Purpose, direction, a place in a pack structure. The communication system crackled with a transmission from Admiral Kethvar. Dr. Chen, the entire Galactic Council is monitoring your progress. Can you confirm that the threat to Centauri has been neutralized? Emma answered before Sarah could respond. The big monster isn't bad anymore. I told it to be good and it listened. Can we take it home? I promise I'll take care of it. The Admiral's voice was carefully controlled. Young lady, that monster is 30 meters tall and has been terrorizing the galaxy. So? Max is really big too, and he's still a good dog. This one just needed someone to teach it manners. Sarah smiled at her daughter's logic. Admiral, I believe the immediate threat is over. But we need to establish a long-term solution. The Vorthak needs structure, purpose, and regular interaction with humans to maintain its stable behavior. You're suggesting we keep it as a pet? The Admiral sounded incredulous. I'm suggesting we find constructive uses for its abilities, Sarah replied. The creature is incredibly powerful. Instead of destruction, that power could be used for construction, mining, exploration, or defense. Emma nodded enthusiastically. It could help build things, or carry really heavy stuff. Max helps Dad carry groceries sometimes. Commander Yalati was monitoring long-range sensors. Dr. Chen, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching our position. It looks like every major fleet in the sector is coming to see what happened. Sarah looked out at the Vorthak, which was floating peacefully beside their ship. The creature had gone from the galaxy's greatest nightmare to its most unusual success story in a matter of hours. Emma, tell our new friend that more ships are coming, but they're friends. We don't want it to get nervous and accidentally hurt someone. Emma nodded seriously and spoke to the Vorthak. More ships are coming, but they're good ships. Be nice to them, okay? No scary noises or breaking things. The creature made a soft rumbling sound that registered as acknowledgement on their sensors. As the first council ships arrived, their crews were treated to an unprecedented sight. The Vorthak, the terror of the galaxy, was floating calmly in space while an 8-year-old human girl gave it instructions through a communication system. "This is Admiral Kethvar aboard the Constellation," came a transmission. "Dr. Chen, I'm looking at something I never thought I'd see. Is that creature actually docile?" "Docile might not be the right word," Sarah replied, "but it's responsive to human authority and eager to please. The key was recognizing that it's a pack animal that needs leadership." Emma waved at the Admiral's ship. "Hi, Admiral. Look, I taught the monster to do tricks." She spoke to the Vorthak again. "Can you wave at the nice Admiral?" The massive creature lifted one of its front limbs and moved it in what was unmistakably a waving gesture. The communication channels exploded with amazed voices from dozens of ships. No one could quite believe what they were seeing. "Emma," Sarah said quietly, "I think you just made the most important discovery in galactic history." "Really?" Emma beamed. "Wait until I tell Max. He's going to be so jealous that I made friends with a space monster." Dr. Rethkin looked up from his datapad. "Dr. Chen, the creature's psychic emanations have stabilized at levels that are actually beneficial. Crews on nearby ships are reporting improved mood and reduced stress. It's as if the Vorthak is now projecting calm instead of terror." Sarah nodded. "It makes sense. Pack animals that are content and secure tend to have a calming effect on their surroundings. The Vorthak was projecting chaos and fear because that's what it was feeling. Now that it's found its place, it's sharing those positive emotions." Admiral Kethvar's voice came through the communication system again. "Dr. Chen, the Council is prepared to offer humanity a permanent position overseeing the Vorthak's integration into galactic society. It seems you're the only species that can communicate with it effectively." Emma clapped her hands excitedly. "Does that mean we get to keep it?" "I think it means the galaxy gets to keep it," Sarah replied. "But yes, I think we'll be spending a lot of time together." As more ships arrived to witness the miracle, Sarah realized that humanity had just found its place in the galactic community. Not through advanced technology or military might, but through something much simpler and more profound: the ability to understand that sometimes the most dangerous creatures just need someone to care about them. Emma was already planning activities for her new friend, talking about games they could play and tricks she could teach it. The Vorthak listened to every word, its massive tail moving in what was clearly happiness. The galaxy's most feared weapon had become its most unusual pet, and an 8-year-old girl had become the most important diplomat in galactic history, all because she knew that every creature, no matter how big or scary, just wanted to be a good dog.